Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're heading over to East Africa, to Ethiopia specifically, to explore how they're tackling climate change and pushing for energy independence with two absolutely massive projects. You might be surprised to hear about the sheer scale of what's happening over there. It's truly remarkable.
It is fascinating to see how Ethiopia sort of weaving together environmental sustainability with economic development.
Yeah.
They're not settling for one or the other. They're aiming for both.
Yeah.
And that's a really valuable lesson for the rest of the world.
Okay, so let's unpack this. First up, we have the Green Legacy Initiative. Their initial goal was to plant 20 billion trees by 2030. And get this, they've already blown past that target. By 2024, they'd planted a mind-boggling 25 billion trees, setting a global record. That shows incredible commitment. But what's the real impact of planting so many trees so quickly?
Well, the speed and scale are impressive. But what's truly interesting is that the Green Legacy Initiative isn't just about planting trees. They're tackling a whole network of interconnected issues with this project. It's a multi-pronged approach to creating a more sustainable future for Ethiopia.
Right, so they're fighting deforestation and climate change, but also dealing with things like soil erosion, water shortages, food insecurity. It all seems to be connected.
Exactly. And by bringing local communities into the planting efforts, they're fostering a sense of national unity and collective responsibility. There's an element of empowerment woven in as well, creating green jobs, boosting agricultural productivity. It all ties together. Ethiopia is demonstrating that sustainability can actually be a driver of economic growth, not a barrier to it.
I'm curious about the economics of it all. Is there any evidence that the Green Legacy Initiative is actually having a positive impact on Ethiopia's economy?
There are some promising early signs. For example, one study suggested that the initiative could increase Ethiopia's GDP by 2% within the next 5 years, largely driven by improvements in agriculture and ecotourism. Of course, these are early estimates. But they paint a picture of the potential economic benefits of a large-scale environmental project like this.
That's a powerful message. Now let's shift gears to something completely different. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD as it's known. This thing is colossal. The largest hydroelectric project in all of Africa. It's located on the Blue Nile. And once it's fully up and running, it's projected to generate over 6,000 megawatts of electricity. For those of you unfamiliar with the world of energy, that's enough to power millions of homes and businesses. But how exactly does a dam generate that kind of power?
Well, hydroelectric dams like GERD work by harnessing the power of flowing water. Basically, the dam creates a large reservoir behind it, and then they release water through turbines. The force of the water spinning those turbines generates electricity. It's a clean and renewable source of energy.
So 6,000 megawatts. To put that in perspective, over 60% of Ethiopia's population currently lives without access to electricity. This dam has the potential to bring power to millions of homes, schools, hospitals, and industries. That's pretty amazing.
It is. Think about the impact this could have on the lives of everyday Ethiopians. You're talking about improved living standards, better healthcare and education, and increased opportunities for economic advancement. It's a potential game changer for the country.
And it's not just about Ethiopia. They'll be able to export electricity to neighboring countries like Sudan, Kenya, and Djibouti. This positions Ethiopia as a major player in Africa's energy market.
And fosters regional integration and cooperation. When countries share resources and work together towards common goals, it often creates a more stable and prosperous environment for everyone involved.
Speaking of regional cooperation, haven't there been some concerns raised by Egypt and Sudan about the impact of GERD on their water supply?
That's right. GERD has been a source of some tension in the region, with downstream countries like Egypt and Sudan worried about the potential impact on their water security. It's a complex issue with no easy solutions, and the negotiations between the countries have been ongoing for years.
It sounds like GERD, while a potential force for good, is also a symbol of Ethiopia's growing influence, and perhaps a source of friction in the region.
That's a good way to put it, and this brings up an interesting point. Ethiopia's actions with both the Green Legacy Initiative and GERD showcase what's often referred to as soft power. Essentially, it means a country's ability to influence others through cultural or diplomatic means, rather than through military force. In this case, Ethiopia is projecting its influence through ambitious development projects and environmental leadership.
Okay, so we've got these two huge projects, Green Legacy and GERD. They seem pretty different on the surface. One's all about trees, the other's about a massive dam. But are there any underlying connections here? Are they both working towards a similar goal?
What's fascinating here is that both the Green Legacy Initiative and the GERD have profound social, political, and economic implications, not just for Ethiopia, but for the entire East African region. And yes, I think they are both working towards a similar goal, even if they're taking different paths to get there.
Knew you were going to say that. All right, let's dive deeper into those social, political, and economic implications, starting with the social impacts of each project. So let's start with the social impact of these initiatives. With the Green Legacy Initiative, it seems like they're really engaging people on a community level.
Absolutely. Think about it. The Green Legacy Initiative brings people together across the country, from small villages to large cities, to work toward this common goal. They're planting trees, restoring land, and creating a sense of shared responsibility for the environment. It's all about fostering social cohesion, strengthening communities, and building national pride.
That makes sense, especially in a country as diverse as Ethiopia. But how does a giant dam like GERD translate into positive social impact? It seems like a very different kind of project.
Well, GERD has the potential to bring electricity to millions of Ethiopians who have never had access to it before. Imagine the transformative effect that will have on people's lives. They'll be able to light their homes at night, power schools and hospitals, start businesses, and connect to the world in ways that weren't possible before. You're essentially talking about raising the standard of living for a huge portion of the population.
It's almost like these projects are tackling the social fabric of the country from two different angles. Green legacy through a sense of community and shared responsibility, and GERD through improvements in quality of life and economic opportunity.
That's a great observation. And it's worth noting that both projects have the potential to empower women in particular, for example. The Green Legacy Initiative has created thousands of jobs for women in nurseries and tree planting programs. And with increased access to electricity thanks to GERD, women will have more time for education, entrepreneurship, and other activities that can contribute to their economic independence.
Those are some really positive social outcomes. Now, let's move on to the political implications of these initiatives. How do projects like this impact Ethiopia's standing on the world stage?
Well, the Green Legacy Initiative definitely positions Ethiopia as a global leader in environmental sustainability. They're showcasing their commitment to combating climate change. And that sets an example for other nations to follow. It enhances Ethiopia's diplomatic influence on the international stage, which is a key aspect of soft power.
And what about GERD? It seems like a pretty bold statement politically, wouldn't you say? Building the largest hydroelectric dam in Africa, despite concerns from neighboring countries.
It certainly is. GERD is a powerful symbol of Ethiopia's national ambition and its determination to control its own destiny. It demonstrates their engineering skills and their commitment to development, sending a clear message that they are capable of undertaking massive projects independently. It's a way for Ethiopia to assert its sovereignty, its independence, and its leadership role in the region.
But it's also caused some tension with those downstream countries.
Right. I remember reading about concerns over water scarcity in Egypt and Sudan.
Yes, that's the other side of the coin. GERD has been a source of controversy, and it highlights the complexities of water management in a region where resources are scarce. It's a reminder that while large-scale development projects like GERD can bring significant benefits, they also need to be carefully managed to avoid negative consequences for neighboring countries and the environment.
It's a delicate balancing act, for sure. Okay. Let's shift gears again and talk about the economic impacts of both of these projects. We already touched on some of the economic benefits of the Green Legacy Initiative, things like job creation and improvements in agriculture, but I imagine there are broader economic implications as well. Absolutely. One of the key goals of the Green Legacy Initiative is to revitalize Ethiopia's agricultural sector, which is the backbone of their economy, by restoring degraded land, improving soil fertility, and increasing water availability. They're hoping to boost agricultural productivity and make the country more food secure. This has a ripple effect throughout the economy, potentially creating jobs, reducing poverty, and attracting foreign investment in the agricultural sector.
And GERD, how does that fit into the economic equation?
It's a massive investment.
Yeah.
But it also has the potential to generate a lot of revenue.
Right.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
GERD is all about boosting Ethiopia's industrial development with a reliable and affordable source of electricity that can power new factories, expand existing industries, and become a hub for manufacturing in East Africa. This would create jobs, boost exports, and accelerate economic growth.
Plus, they can sell that surplus electricity to neighboring countries, bringing in even more revenue. It seems like both the Green Legacy Initiative and GERD are key components of Ethiopia's strategy for reaching middle-income status.
Exactly. For those who might not be familiar with the term, achieving middle income status essentially means a significant increase in average income and living standards for citizens. It's a major goal for many developing countries. And these two projects, working in tandem, could help Ethiopia achieve that goal within the next decade. They're addressing multiple challenges simultaneously: environmental degradation, energy poverty, economic stagnation. And it's a pretty remarkable effort.
It sounds like Ethiopia is really punching above its weight, taking on these ambitious projects and trying to become a leader in the region. But it's not just about Ethiopia, is it? What are the implications of these projects for the broader East African region?
That's a great question, and it's where things get really interesting. Ethiopia's actions are having a ripple effect across East Africa, inspiring similar initiatives in neighboring countries, and potentially shifting the dynamics of the entire region. Let's zoom out a bit and explore those broader regional impacts.
So we've talked about how these projects are impacting Ethiopia, but I'm curious about the ripple effects you mentioned. How are the Green Legacy Initiative and GERD influencing other countries in the region?
Well, for one thing, the Green Legacy Initiative has inspired other East African countries to launch their own ambitious tree planting campaigns.
Yeah.
There's a growing regional movement to combat deforestation and restore degraded ecosystems. It's like Ethiopia's initiative has sparked a sense of urgency and possibility across the region.
It's amazing to think that one country's actions can have such a widespread impact. What about GERD? How is that project influencing the regional landscape?
GERD is acting as a catalyst for regional energy cooperation by selling surplus electricity to neighboring countries like Sudan, Kenya, and Djibouti. Ethiopia is helping to address energy poverty across East Africa. This is critical because a lack of access to reliable and affordable electricity has been a major obstacle to development for many countries in the region.
So GERD is actually helping to unlock economic potential across the entire region by providing a much-needed energy source. That's pretty remarkable.
It is. And it's creating a more interconnected and interdependent East Africa. When countries are linked by shared infrastructure and economic interests, it tends to foster stability, reduce conflict, and promote regional integration.
It seems like Ethiopia is really taking a leadership role in pushing for a more sustainable and prosperous future for the entire region.
I think that's a fair assessment. And it's a model of sustainable development that other parts of the world could learn from. We're seeing how environmental protection, economic growth, and regional cooperation can go hand in hand.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Ethiopia's green revolution, what's the key takeaway for our listeners? What can we learn from Ethiopia's experience?
Well, I think Ethiopia is showing us that it's possible to tackle huge challenges, like climate change and energy poverty, while simultaneously pursuing economic development and regional integration. It requires bold action, long-term vision, and a willingness to collaborate.
It's a story of hope and progress. And it's a reminder that even in the face of complex challenges, positive change is possible. So to our listener, as you go about your day, we'll leave you with this thought. Could a project like GERD, built on international collaboration rather than national ambition, be a model for future sustainable development projects worldwide? Food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this journey to East Africa. Until next time, keep exploring.